Love wants you, we can bring it on the floor. Never danced like this before. We don't talk about it.
Hey guys, what's cracking? It is Crack Nation. Today we're going to be returning to our competitive Showdown Encyclopedia, where we go over terms and just words that are commonly tossed around in OU metagame or UU metagame or just competitive metagame discussion, team building discussion that newer players or even experienced players might not necessarily be familiar with, and we basically just explain those to you. In our previous video we covered synergy, and today we're going to be covering cores. If I can just recap synergy, this is very important when we discuss cores. Synergy is the ability of a Pokemon to function with the Pokemon in it on its team, creating a sum result that's hopefully greater than any one Pokemon could have been by itself. Synergy is very important, and then it ties directly into cores, because a core is a group of usually 2 to 3 Pokemon that synergizes as far as these 2 Pokemon or 3 Pokemon cover each other's weaknesses very effectively. Cover each other's weaknesses as far as, not necessarily, I'm not saying that as far as typing weaknesses, that's what a lot of people assume. It can also be a weakness as an offensive Pokemon that they can't break through something. And so that's an example where an offensive core can help you break through those other Pokemon. So without further ado, we're just going to figure out, start hopping into it, and we're going to I have 5 examples laid out, 2 offensive cores, 3 defensive cores laid out for you that can hopefully help you out. First up, we have the infamous Dio Sharp core. This is a really great core because it's basically just a core built around Keldeo doing some damage, and Bisharp is really easy to core with because it covers it's such a good anti-meta Pokemon in the OU metagame. So many big threats are covered really effectively by Bisharp, such as Zam, Latios, Gengar. It can really threaten them. So Keldeo, as well as Clefable, honestly, all 4 of which I just mentioned are Pokemon that can shut Keldeo down potentially. So Keldeo is able to just do a lot of damage, but it is effectively checked by a lot of those mons. Also mons including Slowbro, Clefable, just really psychic types in general, especially psychic types that resist water in some way, such as Starmie, Slowbro, or even bulky mons, Clefable, all of them. So those Pokemon come in and threaten Keldeo, so it's really nice to have Bisharp, because Keldeo, because it cannot beat them most of the time, Bisharp is able to come in then most of the time for free on a lot of these Pokemon, such as a Latios clicking a Psychic type attack or something. Bisharp can come in for free and just click Knockoff or Pursuit or whatnot. So this is a very effective potential core. Really, a really similar policy applies to the Mega Medicham plus Bisharp core. One second. Where Medicham is able to just really break through a lot of things, but does fear fast Psychic types, bulky Psychic types, just like other Psychic types in general, as well as things like Clefable, Gengar, because it can't click High Jump Kick. So Bisharp is able to really effectively synergize with that. If we had to add on a 3rd Pokemon to this core, actually, I would really recommend covering it with some kind of rock type, even potentially, really just more than anything else, a good bird check is really nice. So even like a Rotom Wash would be really good, because Talonflame is definitely a problem for this core, bird spam in general. So this is a really solid OU core right here. This is a strong, bulky, I would call this a bulky offensive core, where I would probably run Assault Vest on this Bisharp. Just when Bisharp is going to be pursuit trapping in a lot of cores, it really is nice to have Assault Vest Bisharp in my experience. And then Rotom Wash can beat a lot of birds for these other 2 Pokemon. So that's basically, this is a really nice independent core. And so really what you're going to realize with cores is that they're going to be able to independently function pretty much on their own. They shouldn't require much team support beyond that point. Of course, some cores every core is going to have a weakness, and there's cores that are going to like share multiple rocks weaknesses, and then you want to help them with maybe a defogger. So of course, any core will still require some degree of support, but the goal of a core is to be basically able to just single-handedly do most of the supporting for each other. So now we're going to go into some defensive cores. So we got Venu, the Venu Hippo core. This is really nice, a really good way to check Volt turning teams, because these 2 Pokemon together can really put a lot of pressure on Volt turning teams, especially if you EV your Pokemon correctly and well together. Venu, both of these Pokemon have reliable recovery and just really fat. So you're going to be able to synergize them really well together. So thick fat obviously helps with the Ice type weakness, which might otherwise look like a problem. However, of course, every core that we've mentioned here is going to have a problem. So, for example, every defensive core is going to be broken. So, The infamous, a lot of the thing I've kind of mentioned this in previous videos, but the really good way to break through a lot of defensive cores is by using really mean wall breakers. So like Kyurem Black, Okos, both of these two Pokemon potentially. I think a Spadef Venusaur might be able to live in Ice Beam, but Kyurem Black absolutely decimates this because it's terrible. Allows it to break through Venusaur's thick fat. Also, Medicham is a potentially pretty threatening Pokemon, as well as honestly even a Gardevoir. Those are three of the really big OU wall breakers that can all threaten this core. So it has kind of fallen out of grace as of recently, as it's kind of the things that check it are been deemed more popular. Next up we've got another, this is a kind of more bulky pivoting core, so it's really nice to be able to support. A lot of balanced teams really appreciate a core such as this, where you can just Volt Switch and U-turn out. Landers can run a variety of sets when paired with the physically defensive Rotom, such as Scarf, defensive, even like you could go as, I guess you couldn't really go double dance, but you could go like, yeah, Scarf, defensive, even offensive, tankier sets. And you could definitely core these two Pokemon together. And these two Pokemon are really appreciated by teams. So let's say, for example, we cored these two Pokemon with this core here. As you can see, all of a sudden, we started to form a team. And this is kind of when you start building your team, what you're going to start to realize. So all of a sudden, we see this team. And what this team can do for us, if we have like this, is Landers can set up Stealth Rocks, and Bisharp can Pursuit Trap for Medicham. Rotom can check birds with check to things like Talonflame with moves such as this, and this is a lot of time how I team build. And then basically at this point, in a lot of situations, Medicham can just click at really strong attacks. Stealth Rocks from Landorus. We can put U-turn on here. So not Vacuum Wave. What? This thing gets Vacuum Wave? That's crazy. Things like U-turn and Volt Switch from these two Pokemon will be able to get Medicham in. Especially what's nice about Landorus is it has Intimidate to get Medicham in, and maybe even if it has to take a hit, take less damage. Same thing goes for Will-O-Wisp on Rotom. So basically now we can get a slow pivot in, and that's what's really nice about Rotom, is that it's generally a slow pivot. So against an offensive mon, it can come and take a hit, Volt Switch, get in Medicham for free as a slow pivot, which basically means a slow pivot as opposed to a fast pivot is basically when you click a pivoting move, one Pokemon, a pivoting move won't get you out of taking some form of damage most of the time, unless you're like immune or something. But what could be nice about a pivoting move is that a slow pivot such as Rotom Wash can eat a hit, pivot out, get some chip damage, bring in Medicham, who might be able to outspeed what's on the field next, but couldn't have switched in on its own. And so a lot of these more fragile offensive Pokemon, such as Medicham, Lopunny comes to mind as well, Gardevoir, really appreciate slow pivots such as Rotos and Uninvested Landorus. So yeah, that's a nice way. I really like actually, I'm glad I picked these teams because now we start to see cores kind of combining together. If we honestly wanted, we could even throw Keldeo on this core now. And all of a sudden, now we have the Bisharp Keldeo core. We also have Medicham Medicham Bisharp core, and we also have Rotom to support these two. And Landorus also fits with Rotom, and so all of a sudden you can see things start to fall together really nicely. And this is a team maybe we'll do a laddering session with at some point now. And finally, another score I have. This is a really nice bulky offense to balanced core, and this is the Scargar core, which I've been having a lot of great times with recently. Scargar basically run physically defensive Tank Chomp with Rocket Helmet and Stealth Rocks and such. Rough Skin, and then specially defensive Skarmory beats Fairy specifically. So this core's only problem is it's beaten by mons like Thundurus and Manectric pretty effectively, as well as Kyurem Black. So there are some problems with, of course, any core is going to have some issues, but the Scargar core is really nice because it is able to check a lot of things, especially it's able to do a lot of work against less offensively oriented teams. So Iron Head on Skarmory beats Fairies for Garchomp. Garchomp is immune to the electric type attacks that Skarmory fears and resists the fire type attacks that Skarmory fears. In return, Ice and Fairy are both types that Skarmory can switch into, as well as Dragons. Yeah, so these are some examples of some teams. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is something I've really been excited to show you guys. Of course, definitely want to mention that this is very, very far from all the OU cores out there. I actually have a tab loaded up just to show you guys. This is a Good Cores ORAS edition that I found on the Smogon forums. Basically, it's just absolutely like a mine of gold mine of just potential sets you could do. There's plenty of old cores, there's plenty of new cores, balanced, defensive. So there's really any core you could think of is basically here, as well as a lot you probably can't think of. Of course, some are outdated, such as Hoopa Unbound, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of cores you can look for there. A lot you can come up with yourself. If you think you see two Pokemon that you think like, oh, maybe these will synergize well, I say by all means give it a shot, because a lot of times it's very possible that you could be the next trendsetter in OU. It's totally possible, never rule it out. So yeah, definitely cores are something you can be creative with, but don't be ridiculous with, because sometimes like don't pair like Scissor with, I don't know, let's see, don't pair Scissor and like what's Ferrothorn and call that a core. Like they can be in the same team, but don't pair them together and call them a core, because that's not a core. That has no offensive versus like no offensive function, no defensive function, shared typing, poor typing synergy, shared weaknesses, really big weaknesses at that. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind when you're doing cores, making up your own cores. That you actually want to make sure there's a point to it, and that they're beating the things that the other can't beat, or they're defending each other from each other's weaknesses in the case of defense. Yeah, there's definitely those two really big branches of thought as far as defensive cores, and to be able to beat, I should say, an offensive core. Basically, you have Pokemon that can beat the things that the other ones can't beat. A defensive core, you have things that can wall the things that the other can't wall, and so you really want to keep that in mind. But anyways, I do enjoy. Wow, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it was helpful. It's something I love to talk about. So if you have any questions about it, leave some comments in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It is always very appreciated. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Kraken Nation out. So we are just going to click Protect, I'm thinking. And see if we can get a high jump kick. And we do